Welcome. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for being here this evening with us. I am calling to order this special meeting of the Court of Common Council of August 11th. This meeting is broadcasted through Channel 96 Comcast, Hartford Public Access TV, Facebook page, Channel 6032 Frontier. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful. With that being said, Mr. Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilman Clark.
Present.
Councilman Gale. Councilwoman Hercules.
Present.
Councilman LeBron.
Present.
Councilman Mitchum.
Present.
Councilwoman Rosado.
Present.
Councilwoman Rossetti.
Here.
Councilman Sanchez. Councilman Sanchez. Councilwoman Surgeon. Councilwoman Surgeon. You have a quorum, Madam President.
She is
Thank
there.
you, Mr. Clerk. And now our town clerk will lead us on to the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. So we are here, we're pleased this evening to say that
Can anybody hear me?
the agenda this evening is a resolution from Council President Rosado with a company resolution to accept the recommendations prepared by the Charter Revision Commission to amend the charter for the city of Hartford. So we have received the final report, and we would be going through this resolution this evening to vote on the revision of the charter. So this evening, we're also joined by our Corporation Counsel, Howard Rifkin, our Town Clerk, Noel McGregor, his deputy, Eric Lusa, and also the Charter Revision attorney, Steve Mednick. Welcome, everyone.
Madam President, I need to read into the record before the meeting starts.
Absolutely.
Special meeting. This is to be read into the record by the town clerk. Copies of the warrant for the special meeting were given to the chief of police, who has duly certified as to the service of the warrant. A copy of the call has been posted in the town and city clerk website.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk.
Madam President, I would just, Councilwoman
anything.
Surgeon is here. She seems to be having audio trouble, but she popped up right after.
I can hear her fine, right, Councilwoman Surgeon?
I can't hear anything.
She can't hear us. We can hear her.
Okay, let's just take a pause for a minute. Councilman Clark, can you tell her to log off and log back on? That usually does fix it. I think she just did.
It looks like she
Wait for Councilwoman Surgeon to log back on. So while she does log back on, this evening, before we start our meeting,
Computer audio.
now we can hear you. Can you hear us? I don't think she can hear us. Councilwoman Surgeon, are you all set? Can you hear us?
You can hear it now?
Yep.
Testing.
Can you hear? Oops.
Yes, I hear.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes, we
Okay.
can. So welcome again, everyone. So this evening, we have with us, like I said, Attorney Steve Mednick for.
Back off again.
I'm sorry, what was that? I might have to call a brief motion to go into recess until Councilwoman Surgeon.
Yeah, it's not working again.
Corporation Counsel.
Through you, Madam President, I don't think you need to have a motion. I think you just stand at ease until we fix the technical problem.
Duly noted. So we will stand at ease until Councilwoman Surgeon fixes her technical problems.
Okay.
Okay, wonderful. So we are back live from our brief recess. And Corporation Counsel, should we do another roll call?
I think you could just recognize who is in the meeting.
Okay, so I'm going to recognize Councilwoman Rossetti, Councilman Nick LeBron, Majority Leader Clark, Councilman Josh Schmidtstam, Councilwoman Hercules, Councilman Sanchez. And so without further ado, I'm going to turn this meeting over to Mr. Mednick, the charter
Madam President.
attorney, so that he can give us a brief explanation of the next steps through this process for our public who's viewing us, so that they know exactly what is going to happen procedurally as we move through this resolution. Mr. Mednick, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. It's my honor, and I want to thank the president, the leadership, and the entire membership of the body for their courtesies in the last year and change. I greatly appreciate the efforts of all of you and the efforts of our commission that worked so hard during this process. So where we are tonight is under the statutes. We're in a section where we have to, the council has to act upon the document. And what that means, as I think many of you know, because I think I've mentioned this before for the public, is that you can approve the document, either it's in its entirety or parts of the document, and you can reject it in part or in whole. And so, and the vote has to be by a majority of the entire membership of the body, a majority vote of the entire membership. You cannot vote to amend. You can only vote to accept or reject. So if there's a section that you're comfortable with, you can vote to accept it. You can vote to reject it. And when you're rejecting a section, that is a rejection in part, as you know, as the statute reads. And so, so you need to be very mindful of that. So the time to have raised questions was 2 weeks ago, when the resolution came over to the commission. At this point, you're at the point of accepting or rejecting the document. The other thing you're going to be doing this evening, according to the resolution, is you're going to be agreeing on a question, which is subsection F of the statute, 7-191F. The question that would be proposed to the voters in November, that has to be done by the first week in September. It has to be submitted to the Secretary of the State's office, and you will be doing that. And the proposal is a very simple and direct question. It also, in your resolution, indicates that the next step is within 30 days. We will be preparing a copy of the proposed revised charter. It would show the red line changes in the document that would be that would be published in a newspaper having general circulation in Hartford, and with appropriate notices. And the final action is you would be authorizing the town clerk, the town and city clerk, to move forward with the drafting of an explanatory text. And what the explanatory text is the document that is that the town clerk is authorized to prepare, subject to approval by Corporation Counsel Rifkin. That's by statute that the Corporation Counsel has that authority. That states the specific intent and purpose of the proposed charter revisions. It's usually one of the last things I do for a commission, and it goes section by section so that voters, when they get to the polls, or if they're at the public library, or if you post it on the website of the town, or you post it anywhere you can, the town is permitted to use public funds to post the document. It's not an advocacy document. It's a factual explication of what will be in the document. So that's the sum and substance of what's in the resolution tonight. And I hope I was helpful in at least letting you know what the procedural, you're in an odd procedural place for a legislative body, I will admit. That because most legislative bodies get to amend, modify, change things. In this case, you can only vote to approve or reject. So I sat in your seat once and found it very frustrating, but that's the way the law works. So thank you very much. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Steve. And so without further ado, I will turn the floor over to our majority leader.
I'm on council meeting.
Thank you, Madam President. Through you, as Attorney Mednick has stated regarding the duties of the council, according to the transmittal letter that was sent to us and provided to us through the clerk's office as it was delivered to each of our residences, I would like to make a motion that we take up each line item, which is 20 of them individually.
Second.
A motion has been made and properly second. Are there any questions? Any discussion? There being none, Mr. Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilman Clark,
Yes.
Councilman Gale, Councilwoman Hercules,
Yes.
Councilman LeBron,
No.
Councilman Mitchum,
Yes.
Councilwoman Rosado,
No.
Councilwoman Rossetti,
No.
Councilman Sanchez,
Yes.
Councilwoman Surgeon.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Mr. Majority Leader, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Through you, as it states before us, the Charter Revision Commission, City of Hartford, in order to facilitate your final review and action, below is the overview of the Common Council's recommendations made in Substitute Resolution Number 1 and Substitution Resolution Number 2 at its July 25th meeting, and how the Commission responded to each item. So for consideration, item number 1, Chapter 1, Section 4, the Commission modified. I make a motion that we take action on item 1, Chapter 1, Section 4. The Commission modified the definitions of capital expenditure in accord with Substitute Resolution Number 2 and classified services and majority vote of the Council in accord with Substitution Resolution Number 1.
My apologies. Is this a motion? Yes, I second that.
Motion has been made and properly second. Councilman Mitchum.
Just a procedural question. After we vote on these various lines, we still are going to also vote on the whole thing when we're done, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
A motion has been made and properly second. Are there any questions, any discussions? Councilman LeBron.
All right, so procedurally, did we just approve that we're gonna go line for line?
Yes, that motion was.
Okay. I thought in the other, since this charter hasn't been passed yet,
right? I believe one of the revisions prior to this charter being passed, in the old charter stated, which we went through this before, where we didn't have enough votes, and so we're supposed to have 5 votes in order to, I thought that it was the case, that we're supposed to have 5 votes. That's what happened in, well, it's the current charter until we pass. Is that not the case? And I'm seeking legal advice from either Corporation Counsel or our advisor, Attorney Mendick.
I'll be happy to defer to the Corporation Counsel if I get it wrong, and I'm sure he'll correct me. But I think what we did here is we discovered that there was a conflict between the definition that we were drafting and the definition that is in the body of the document. And it was agreed that the standard that you have currently should be the uniform standard for the town, for the city of Hartford. And so you will see that the definition of majority vote is the definition that is in your current charter. It's now been moved to a definition section.
So I'm going to have to refer for a second opinion, because we just had the same situation in a prior meeting where we needed 5 votes to pass a motion and 5 votes to pass a resolution.
Through you, Council President, on each of these motions, as I understand what Councilman Clark is looking to do is to go through each of the 20 items that represent changes to the current charter proposed by the Charter Revision Commission, and either accept each one or not, or reject each one way or the other. The requisite number of votes is 5. And so the question would be, for number 1, is what is the motion? Is the motion to approve, or is the motion to reject? The same thing should be sequentially for each item.
Correct, but and correct me if I'm wrong, Councilman LeBron. His question was your question, Councilman LeBron, on the motion that just took place to go
Yes.
item by item?
Yeah, because they only had, it was only 4 votes to go line for line. We didn't get the requisite 5. So if it was, so it doesn't make sense that we need 5 moving forward, but 4 to vote line by line. And going back to Attorney Mendick, given what the charter was saying and the correction now for interpretation, it's still currently, right now, as of this minute, based what the old charter is, or still the current charter until we pass a new one. So regardless of what our interpretation is moving forward for this next charter, we should still be adhering to what's in place now. So it doesn't make sense that we go back and forth and we go line for line, need 5, and then to even do the motion of going line for 9, we only need 4. I don't understand how that works.
Through you, Madam President, if I may. I wasn't counting what the vote was, but if there were four votes, in favor of Councilman Clark's resolution, then it failed.
Through you, Madam President, I have 5 votes.
You do?
Councilman Clark was a yes. Councilman Hercules a yes. Councilman Mitchell was a yes. Councilman Sanchez was a yes. And Councilwoman Surgeon was a yes.
Then the motion passed.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Majority Leader Clark, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Through you, I'd like to make the motion that we accept chapter the first item, line 1, chapter 1, section 4, the commission modified the definitions of capital expenditure in accord with substitute resolution number 2 in classified services and majority vote of the council in accord with substitute resolution number 1.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any discussions? Motion has been made and properly seconded. Discussions. Councilman LeBron?
Yes, so just given prior to today's meeting with the acceptance and now that we got this new letter, I also have a motion just depending on my colleagues' opinions. So we're not elongating this meeting as possible. So I would, and again, I don't know if it's possible, but for discussion and depending on my colleagues and if possible, Attorney Rifkin, Corporation Counsel, given that we probably are going to see a pattern for all 20, I would make a motion, if we can, that the 5 votes that wanted to go line for line be passed, and the 3 votes that didn't want to go line for line be passed for all 20 of these. So that way we're not going for, to go over 20 of them and then have discussions on all 20 of them. Because I thought that this was agreed upon the last meeting that we had. That's just a recommendation and a conversation for my colleagues, and also if it's even legal through Attorney Rifkin.
So through you, Council President, if I may, I think the purpose of asking for each one to be separated was for the very purpose of going line by line and explaining them. And while these were all voted on to be sent back to the commission, they weren't all voted on in agreement to be the adopted changes to the new. And again, I'm only speaking for myself, but my understanding is they weren't voted on to be part of the new charter. And that's the reason why folks are asking to go line by line, because there are some that are agreed upon, but not others. So by doing what you propose, while I understand that would be efficient, I think that would defeat the purpose of Councilman Clark's motion.
And I understand exactly what you're
Is you me? I just want to know, is you meant to be me, Councilman Ron?
And I have a point of order. We have a motion on the floor right now. So Councilman LeBron, you can make a motion afterwards. Corporation Counsel, I saw your hand up.
That's what I was going to say. There is a motion pending, and so you need to dispatch that, and then Councilman LeBron is then able to make whatever motion he wants to make.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor, a second. Mr. Clerk, could you please call the vote?
Councilman Clark,
Yes.
Councilman Gale, Councilwoman Hercules,
Yes.
Councilman LeBron. Councilman LeBron,
Yes.
Councilman Mitchum,
Yes.
Councilwoman Rosado,
Yes.
Councilwoman Rossetti,
Yes.
Councilman Sanchez,
Yes.
Councilwoman Surgeon.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Mr. Majority Leader, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Sorry, before I continue, I just need clarification from Corporation Counsel. Our motions are to either accept or reject, correct? Not take action.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. So moving on, through you, Madam President, I would like to make a motion that we accept line item number 2, chapter 4, section 4C. The commission modified the method of appointment, the term and administration of the office of the town and city clerk in accord with substitute resolution number 2.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and properly second. Are there any discussions, any comments, any discussions?
I'm sorry, Madam President. I can't raise my hand at the time because I'm
Okay. You have the floor.
Yeah, I apologize. I'm using a different computer system. So please bear with me and my not having video. This item 4, I'm sorry, chapter 4, section 4, my interpretation is that every time a new council comes in, they would have an opportunity to vote for a new town clerk. I don't see the need of that, especially when the town clerk's office, the keeper of our records for the city of Hartford, and the knowledge base that's there, that's needed, that I don't think that would be appropriate thing for each time a new council or a continuation of council every 4 years, they can either accept or remove the town clerk. So seeing that I would like to see the knowledge base continue in that office, I will be rejecting voting on this resolution or recommendation.
Councilman Sanchez?
I completely agree with Councilwoman Surgeon. And there is a particular section, that same chapter, section 4 or C, town and city clerk, and I'll read the language: appointment and duties. The council shall appoint a city clerk whose term shall be continuous with that of the council and who shall serve as an at-will employee. I have issues with that, so I will not be supporting that section.
Are there any other comments? Any other comments? There being none, Mr. Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilman Clark,
No.
Councilman Gale, Councilwoman Hercules,
No.
Councilman LeBron,
No.
Councilman Mitchum,
No.
Councilwoman Rosado,
No.
Councilwoman Rossetti.
No.
Motion rejected.
Thank
Item
you.
rejected. Yeah, sorry.
So for,
Yes. You're on mute.
I'm
Yes.
sorry, it's simply the opening clause that was rejected. You did not reject the item number 2 in there, that the town and clerk's office, town and city clerk's office is an administrative and budgetary purposes under the council. That was not included, I assume. Am I right?
Correct.
To you, Madam President, just a point of clarification. I believe your interpretation, Attorney Mednick, is correct based upon what I read, which was in the summary that was provided to us.
Thank you. Mr. Majority Leader, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Through you, I would like to make the motion that we accept line item 3, chapter 4, section 4D, the commission modify the provision on council staff in accord with substitute resolution number 2.
Councilman Sanchez?
Yes, point clarification. I don't think my name was called on that last vote.
Yes, I called it.
You did, okay.
Yes,
Apologies.
you said you rejected it. Thank you.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and properly second. Are there any comments? There being none, Mr. Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilman Clark.
Sorry, I had a question, just for clarification. Can it be read what this section is?
Attorney Mednick?
This is the section of the document where you were creating a council staff provision. It was a fairly extensive section that really laid out a number of different items for the council to consider. And what you did a few weeks ago is you asked the commission to take a look at the pared down provision that eliminated specific staff positions: Director of Legislative Services, budget analyst, assignment protocols, transfer protocols, all those things in favor of a shorter, more focused section that gives you the authority to appoint full-time, and this is the key term, I think, is professional, clerical, and administrative staff. The intent of the section, as I understand it, as I recall from the commission, was to give you the ability to establish the professional staff. What you can do now under the revised language is do it by ordinance. So many of the provisions in here, some of which would need to be cleaned up and to work in the context of the Hartford government, could be adopted by ordinance. So if you accept this language, you're accepting the modified language that you proposed to the Charter Revision Commission. The commission accepted your modifications in their entirety. If you were to reject this, you basically eliminate the provision from this provision from the charter. So you don't resurrect the other items. For example, if you found the concept of the budget analyst appealing, your time to have found that appealing would have been 2 weeks ago. It's if you accept the language that you had recommended to the commission for consideration, you're accepting it. If you reject it, you're eliminating the language completely from the charter.
Thank you, Attorney Mednick. Councilman Mixtum?
Thank you. I think this is also a question for Attorney Mednick. So if I understand correctly, if we were to accept this, we are not binding ourselves to creating any of these positions. Like, we're not making them charter required positions. We're simply giving ourselves the ability to create them by ordinance, but we're not actually creating any positions just by saying yes here, correct?
For the record, that is absolutely correct. That's the distinction between what the commission initially proposed and what you had asked them to reconsider. So you're not creating any positions, but it does lay out the principle that you should be moving in the direction of hiring professional staff. You get to make those decisions in real time through ordinance and budget.
Thank you, Attorney Mednick. Are there any other questions, comments? There being none, Mr. Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilman Clark,
Yes.
Councilman Gale, Councilwoman Hercules,
Yes.
Councilman LeBron,
Yes.
Councilman Mitchum,
Yes.
Councilman Rosado,
Yes.
Councilman Rossetti,
Yes.
Councilman Sanchez,
Yes.
Councilman Surgeon.
Approve.
Motion accepted.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Mr. Majority Leader, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Through you, I'd like to make a motion that we approve line item 4, which is Chapter 5, Section 1. The commission approve a scrivener's revision of the mayoral compensation provision in accord with substitute resolution number 2.
Second.
Motion has been made and properly second. Are there any discussions, any questions? Councilman LeBron.
Yes, I have a question. This to my council colleagues. Can we take a break and just see which ones we're going to consent on and then come back and talk and discuss about the ones where we may differ on?
Again, Councilman LeBron, we are in the middle of a vote, of a motion.
Sure.
Once we finish this vote, then you can raise that question.
Thank you.
So motion has been made and properly second. Are there any other discussions? There being none, Mr. Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilman Clark,
Approve.
Councilman Gale, Councilwoman Hercules,
Yes.
Councilman LeBron,
Yes.
Councilman Mitchum,
Yes.
Councilman Rosado,
Yes.
Councilman Rossetti,
Yes.
Councilman Sanchez,
Yes.
Councilwoman Surgeon.
Approve.
Motion accepted.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Councilman LeBron.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn so our colleagues can come together and just land on what we're going to consent on. So that way we could focus our energies on what we're not, what we need to have discussions on. So I'll make a motion to adjourn. or not adjourn, excuse me, wrong language. I make a motion to
Take a recess,
recess, yes.
to take a recess to go into caucus mode.
Correct, to see what items we're going to consent, yes.
I would second that.
Motion has been made and properly seconds to go into a brief recess. Mr. Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilman Clark,
No.
Councilman Gale, Councilwoman Hercules,
No.
Councilman LeBron,
Yes.
Councilman Mitchum,
Yes.
Councilwoman Rosado,
Yes.
Councilwoman Rossetti,
Yes.
Councilman Sanchez,
Yes.
Councilwoman Surgeon.
No.
Motion passed.
Thank you.
Wait,
Mr. Clerk, I am going,
Point of order.
yes,
I don't know, because we talked about the 5 votes, and I don't know if this is procedural, so it only needs a simple majority, or if it needs the 5 votes. So maybe that's a question for Mednick and Howard. I just want to make sure we're doing the thing right.
so the motion just passed because it had 5 votes. Is that what you're asking?
I don't think it did have 5 votes, is what I'm saying. Maybe I lost track, but I thought it had 4.
It did have 5 votes.
Oh, I beg your pardon. I'm sorry.
The clerk can confirm that.
Yes, 5
Sorry about
votes. 5 votes in it.
So a motion just passed. We're recessed. Right now, we will go into caucus mode. I will call you, Councilman Mixtum and Councilwoman Hercules. Yes, Councilman Sanchez.
Yes, will you be providing a link?
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
thank you.
yes. Mr. Town Clerk, I will now make you the host temporarily, okay?
Okay,
Since I have to log off.
okay, no problem.
Councilman Clark, could you please send us all a link, the Dems, please? I know you're very good at that really quick. Thank you. And I actually know what Councilman LeBron wants to do, so that's why I'm in an agreement with this recess. So welcome back, everyone, and apologies for this delay. Mr. Clerk, we are back from recess. Could you please call the roll?
Councilman Clark,
I'm sorry, what was,
this
We're
is
just
roll
calling the roll
call.
back.
okay, thank you. Here.
Councilman Gale, Councilwoman Hercules,
Present.
Councilman LeBron,
Here.
Councilman Mitchum,
Here.
Councilwoman Rosado,
Present.
Councilwoman Rossetti,
Here.
Councilman Sanchez,
Present.
Councilwoman Surgeon.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Mr. Majority Leader, you have the floor.
All right. Thank you, Madam President, through you. I think we were at line item action number 5.
Yes, that is correct.
All right. So I would like to make the motion that we approve line item 5, which is chapter 5, section 2D. The commission remove the collective bargaining agreement in accord with substitute resolution number 2.
Is there a second?
Second, a second.
Motion has been made and properly second. Are there any comments? Any comments? There being none, Mr. Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilman Clark,
Reject.
Councilman Gale, Councilwoman Hercules,
No.
Councilman LeBron,
Yes.
Councilman Mitchum,
No.
Councilwoman Rosado,
Yes.
Councilwoman Rossetti,
Yes.
Councilman Sanchez,
No.
Councilwoman Surgeon.
Reject.
Motion rejected.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Mr. Majority Leader, you have the floor. Mr. Majority Leader, did we lose him?
Council President, I believe he's frozen.
We'll just give them a couple of minutes.
Yeah, something is going on with Zoom today.
Welcome back, Councilman Clark.
Sorry, yeah, there's the issues going on with Zoom. I don't know where we left off.
Number 6.
Number 6.
Thank you. Through you, Madam President, I would like to make the motion that we accept line item number 6, which is Chapter 6, Section 2A. The commission added language permitting city funds to be placed in state or federally chartered credit unions in accord with substitute resolution number 2.
I second.
Motion has been made and properly second. Are there any discussions, any comments? There being none, Mr. Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilman Clark,
I accept.
Councilman Gale, Councilwoman Hercules,
Accept.
Councilman LeBron,
Pass.
Councilman Mitchum,
Yes.
Councilwoman Rosado,
Yes.
Councilwoman Rossetti,
Yes.
Councilman Sanchez,
Yes.
Councilwoman Surgeon,
Approve.
Councilman LeBron,
Yes.
motion accepted.
Mr. Majority Leader, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to make the motion that we accept line item 7, Chapter 6, Section 2B. The commission removed the requirement for the city treasurer to approve all disbursement from trust funds because it conflicted with the ordinance in accord with substitute resolution number 2.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and properly second. Councilwoman Surgeon, is your hand up for discussion?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, you have the floor.
Thank you. This is through you, Madam Chair, to Attorney Mesnick. I was a little bit confused regarding there is a conflict with our ordinance. So therefore, that's why you're moving out of the charter.
I'd be happy to defer to the Corporation Counsel. The conflict with the ordinance, from my perspective, should require change in the ordinance or an exception in the charter. We really can't do an exception at this point. And my understanding is the treasurer had no objection to the elimination of this language, but I'll be happy to defer to the Corporation Counsel, who I think worked on this more directly than I did.
Through you, Madam Chair, to the Corporation Counsel.
Through you, Council President. Attorney Mennick is correct. After conferring with Treasurer Cloud, I don't believe it was the intent to amend the charter to essentially negate the provision of the ordinance specifically related to the Parks Trust Fund, which gives some discretion to the mayor and the council to expend or allocate a certain amount of the investment proceeds from the Park Trust Fund, which, had this provision remained in the charter, it would have been prevented from allowing that to happen.
So through you, Madam Chair, to the Corporation Counsel's office. So let me make sure I'm understanding this. So the ordinance allows the mayor to also include it in the decision for the use of some of the trust funds, the Park Trust Funds money. But the charter gave all of those rights to the treasurer.
The charter revision proposed to do that. It's my understanding, after communications with the treasurer's office that did a lot of work on the charter revision provisions related to treasurer's office was not their intent. And I'd hasten to add, it's not just the mayor, it's also the discretionary authority of the council.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Corporation Counsel.
Are there any other comments or questions? There being none, Mr. Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilman Clark,
Accept.
Councilman Gale, Councilwoman Hercules,
Yes.
Councilman LeBron,
Yes.
Councilman Mitchum,
Yes.
Councilwoman Rosado,
Yes.
Councilwoman Zetti,
Yes.
Councilman Sanchez,
I accept.
Councilwoman Surgeon.
I accept.
Motion.
I'm sorry,
accept.
approve, sorry.
Approved, accept. Motion approved.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Mr. Majority Leader, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Through you, I'd like to make the motion that we approve line item 9, which is chapter 8, section 1I. The commission removed provisions. Line item 8, chapter 8, section 1B, 4, and 6. The commission altered the standard for meeting frequency, requiring 1 meeting per quarter rather than 1 meeting per month, and removed the requirement to assign it to each board or commission in accordance with substitute resolution number 2.
I second.
Motion has been made and properly second. Are there any questions? Any questions? There being none, Mr. Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilman Clark,
I approve.
Councilman Gale, Councilwoman Hercules,
No.
Councilman LeBron,
Yes.
Councilman Mitchum,
No.
Councilwoman Rosado,
Yes.
Councilwoman Zetti,
Yes.
Councilman Sanchez,
Yes.
Councilwoman Surgeon.
Approve.
Motion accepted.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Mr. Majority Leader, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Through you, I'd like to make the motion that we accept line item 9, chapter 8, section 1I. The commission removed provisions pertaining to A, publication of vacancies on boards and commissions, B, public communications, and nominations to the council in accordance with substitute resolution number 2.
Second the motion.
Motion has been made and properly second. Are there any questions? Any questions? Any discussion? There being none, Mr. Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilman Clark,
I approve.
Councilman Gale, Councilwoman Hercules,
No.
Councilman LeBron,
Pass.
Councilman Mitchum,
No.
Councilwoman Rosado,
Yes.
Councilwoman Rossetti,
Yes.
Councilman Sanchez,
Accept.
Councilwoman Surgeon,
Approve.
Councilman LeBron.
Yes.
Motion accepted.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Mr. Majority Leader, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Through you, I'd like to make the motion that we accept line item number 10, which is chapter 8, section 2, C, D, and E. The commission restored mayoral appointment authority to the Board of Assessment Appeals, adding 2 alternates, Planning and Zoning Commission and Zoning Board of Appeals. In accordance with substitute resolution number 2, errata corrections were also made with respect to the qualifications and statutory responsibilities of the Planning and Zoning Commission in accordance with substitute resolution number 1.
Second.
Motion has been made and properly second. Any discussions? Councilwoman Surgeon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, Madam, to Attorney Rifkin. So the original commission had given council a couple of appointments to boards and commission. So those have been removed. Is that my interpretation?
Through you, Council President, yes.
So therefore, council, everything is reverted back to the original where mayor recommend and council approve.
Correct.
Thank you, sir.
Are there any other questions? There being none, Mr. Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilman Clark,
I accept.
Councilman Gale, Councilwoman Hercules,
No.
Councilman LeBron,
Yes.
Councilman Mitchum,
No.
Councilwoman Rosado,
Yes.
Councilwoman Rossetti,
Yes.
Councilman Sanchez,
No.
Councilman Surgeon. Councilwoman Surgeon.
I'm thinking, reject.
Motion rejected.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Councilman LeBron, you have your hand up?
Yes, I apologize, and I want to thank everyone for the recess, and through you, Madam President. I would make a motion for, as a council, for us to consent the items that we all agree on.
Is there a second?
Second.
Councilman Clark?
Madam Chair, point of clarification, we do not know what items that those are. If those can be stated for the record.
Majority Leader, I believe either you or Council President have that list.
I think that list has already been almost exhausted, but I see the Corporation Council's hand up.
Through you, Council President, only to point out what Majority Leader Clark just said, and motion should be in the form of which items by number are you consenting to?
Thank you for that clarification, Corporation Counsel. And yes, Councilman LeBron, the last items that are left on what we had agreed upon are items 12 and 13. So on that consent. So would you like to withdraw your motion?
I withdraw my motion.
Councilman Sanchez, do you withdraw your motion, your second?
Yes.
Majority Leader, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Well, I see Corporation Council's hand.
Yes, Corporation Counsel. I see your
All
hand.
right, I'll put my hand down right now.
Okay, Majority Leader, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Through you, I moved that we, I make a motion that we accept line item number 7 as Chapter 7, Section 3A. The commission removed the elector requirement for Corporation Council in accord with substitute resolution number 2.
Majority Leader, did you mean 11?
Yes, we've already done 7.
I'm sorry. 11.
Okay.
Line item 11. Thank you.
Okay.
Second.
A motion has been made and Councilman Mitchum?
I didn't mean to interrupt. I was waiting for you to stand properly seconded and then ask if there were comments, and then I would offer one. But thank you, Madam President. I just want to say, to be clear, when we say the elector requirement, what we're saying here is that this would take out of the charter the rule that requires the Corporation Council live in the city. And I think, I've heard the argument, for example, for the director of MHIS for some very highly technical jobs that maybe we could look outside the city or by ordinance get rid of that. But we got lawyers here in the city. I'm one, but we got better ones than me. Plenty of them. We have plenty of talent and intellect in this city. And I think it's also worthwhile to say that if you were going to represent this city legally, you should be here and you should be invested in the outcome of what you do as a resident and a taxpayer. So I would urge my colleagues to vote no on this one.
Councilwoman Shirley Surgeon, followed by Councilman Sanchez.
Thank you, Madam President. And again, I'm also have to apologize to our residents and viewers of not actually appearing on camera tonight. Just have some technical difficulties. So I'm using a new computer or my iPad. So the reason why I am going to, one of the reasons last year, we amended our ordinance for some technical positions to be non-residents. And I'm glad we did so going into the COVID that we have had. Our our MHIS director did a fabulous job in getting us through COVID and getting us a lot of the staff in the city, working remotely. So I did understand that, and we as council, with the mayor recommendation, makes a decision what offices, personnel that is mandated to live within the city. I totally agree with Councilor Mitchell that we have tons of attorneys that still resides and choose to live in our city. But I'm going to give the council, if it's not me or from now on or going forward, that decision to make regarding personnel, except for police and the immediate personnel or fire or our health and human services, which are much more highly technical position. So I'm going to give the council in the future the opportunity to make decisions regarding the ordinance that we are going to pass, I hope, in the near future, to make sure that the Corporation Counsel's Office is retained as a residency in the city. And so I will vote yes under the opportunity that the ordinance, should the charter be approved, make sure the ordinance have residency in there. So thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Councilwoman Surgeon. Councilman Sanchez.
So through you, Madam President, thank you. And I completely agree with Councilman Minkdom and also Councilwoman Surgeon. And what I see here is an opportunity where if we were to keep it in the charter, we no longer have an authority to amend the requirements or what have you. So, for example, our director for MHIS is from Hartford, vested in Hartford, and I believe that we changed that position where we changed the requirement of being a resident of Hartford to retain a person who is born and raised in Hartford and has proven herself to be able to manage MHIS. But the most important piece here is that if we can take it out of charter and give it to the council, we have the authority to either, to put in an ordinance where we can strengthen the language or retain a Hartford resident. And that is what's important to me, because this is a Hartford resident and we gave that opportunity. So with that said, I appreciate what you said, Councilman Minkdom and Councilwoman Surgeon, but I will be voting yes on this.
Thank you, Councilman Sanchez. Councilman LeBron.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just clearly, I'm going to be voting no on this. And I just want to state as succinct as possible as to why. I think the record indicates on how strongly I feel about residency. I believe we have a talent pool that hasn't been exhausted, number one, in the residents. And number two, also within the city staff. If you look at the past records, those would show it. I think the tendency is to focus on individual items and use them as a microcosm or as an example. And I think we could find numerous examples of folks who have dedicated their lives to the city and moved on from the city. But sometimes you have to make hard decisions. And by doing so, by opening up residency, you open up a Pandora's box where it now becomes on the spectrum. And now we're saying, okay, who is dedicated? What does dedicated mean? Because I went to the high school, how long did I live? And so I'd rather close that box up, at least with my decision, and I respect my colleagues. The other thing is in terms of ordinance, we have seen through history on this council, not just in my first term, but historically, where things are promised today and ordinances change and opinions change tomorrow, just as we're seeing today with our charter. And I think as elected officials, that is our right. And we have that opportunity to make sure that we're getting in all of our input to make the most informed decisions as best as possible. So using what the kids say today, and I dedicate, I work with youth, and folks say yesterday's price is not today's price. And so I am cashing in today's price, not waiting for tomorrow. And so that's why I would be voting no, but also to say I would even strengthen the residency clause to put every department head in the charter. So that is my opinion. And thank you, Madam President.
Thank you for your comments. Councilman Clark?
Thank you, Madam President. Through you, just briefly, I believe that in the charter currently, the Corporation Council, upon being appointed as Corporation Council, has to already have moved into the city of Hartford and be an elector. So, and if I'm incorrect, please correct me. And so, to the points made, if we're going to accept this, the ordinance can be strengthened, and it's up to the council body at the end of the day on whomever is brought before us as a department head to either accept it or reject it. And all it does is just take 5 votes. So it's really not that complicated. And I think we all recognize the importance of our department heads being a city resident. However, it has been hard to fill some of these positions, and it's all according to the appointing body. So therefore, again, it takes the council itself to stand united if we want to accept whoever's going to be presented to us as a department head or reject it. So I will be supporting this with the hope that we can also make sure that our residency requirements are strengthened, and also too is up to this body to make sure that if there's things that are not being adhered to by the ordinance, that we collectively make sure that we are working with the administration to make sure that the ordinance is being adhered to.
Thank you, Councilman Clark. And I'm not going to prolong this conversation, but I do echo with every single comment that Councilman Clark just said. Are there any other comments? Any other comments?
Attorney Mednick has his hands up.
Attorney Mednick? You're on mute.
I just wanted to point out that there's a tandem section that you need to be aware of, section 3A in chapter 5, and that's, everybody's been talking about it. That's where if you were to adopt the elimination of the requirement for residency, that's where you put the Corp Council in the ordinance. That's the ordinance provision that would allow you to make a residency determination for the Corporation Council. So I just wanted to point that out. Not so important if you adopt this, that clearly goes into effect, but if you don't adopt it, you'll have to, we'll assume that you're eliminating that amendment. So I just wanted to point that out for the record.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Mr. Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilman Clark,
I accept.
Councilman Gale, Councilwoman Hercules,
Reject.
Councilman LeBron,
No.
Councilman Mitchum,
No.
Councilwoman Rosado,
Yes.
Councilwoman Rossetti,
Yes.
Councilman Sanchez,
Accept.
Councilwoman Surgeon.
Approve.
Motion accepted.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Mr. Majority Leader, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Through you, I'd like to make the motion that we accept line item number 2, which is chapter 8. Section 5D, the commission raised the threshold for competitive procurement bids from $25,000 to $50,000 and provided the council the ability to further increase the threshold by ordinance in accord with substitute resolution number 2.
Point of order, is that item 12, not 2?
I'm sorry, did I say 2? I'm sorry.
Second.
Number 12.
A motion has been made and properly second. Are there any discussions? Any discussions, any comments? There being none, Mr. Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilman Clark,
I accept.
Councilman Gale, Councilwoman Hercules,
Accept.
Councilman LeBron, Councilman LeBron, Councilman Mitchum,
Yes.
Councilwoman Rosado,
Yes.
Councilwoman Rossetti,
Yes.
Councilman Sanchez,
I accept.
Councilwoman Surgeon,
Approve.
Councilman LeBron,
Yes.
motion accepted.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Mr. Majority Leader, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Through you, I'd like to make the motion that we approve line item 13, which is Chapter 10, Section 2C1. The commission modified the request and substitute resolution number 2 to acquire the reporting of receipt or expenditure of multi-year state and federal funds within department estimates.
Second.
Motion has been made and properly second. Are there any discussions, any comments, comments?
Madam President, through you, I just would like to just clarification by either Attorney Metnick or the Corporation Counsel regarding this section that's before us.
Attorney Mednick?
So this section requires each of what the amendment to the section does is it requires that you include multi-year state or federal funds. The proposal that you had sent back to the commission was state or federal funds of any nature. And I think that the notion of the multi-year shows a level of dependency and reliability and ability to acknowledge that those funds exist for purposes of planning, and those funds, as well as all other receipts and expenditures, basically get each of the department heads is required to provide estimates on forms that are provided to provide the estimates of revenue and expenditure. So the multi-year component is just a characterization of the federal or state funds. You can't really budget funds you don't anticipate are going to come or that you don't know are going to come. And so therefore, the only ones you could really budget would be multi-year funds.
Thank you, Attorney Mednick. Corporation Counsel Howard Rifkin?
Through you, Council President, just to be clear, what the Court of Common Council did and sent back to the commission was a removal of any reporting of any state and federal funds through a grant, whether or not it was multi-year. And the commission determined that what it would like to see are reports filed that show the nature and scope of multi-year state and federal grants as part of the budget process.
Thank you, Corporation Counsel. Are there any other questions or comments? There being none, Mr. Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilman Clark,
I approve.
Councilman Gale, Councilwoman Hercules,
Yes.
Councilman LeBron,
Yes.
Councilman Mitchum,
Yes.
Councilwoman Rosado,
Yes.
Councilwoman Rossetti,
Yes.
Councilman Sanchez,
Accept.
Councilwoman Surgeon.
Approve.
Motion accepted.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Mr. Majority Leader, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Through you, I'd like to make the motion that we accept line item 14, which is Chapter 10, Section 2C1V. The commission removed the requirement for budgeted entities to include the following information in the budget estimates and request: the impact of existing collective bargaining agreements in effect at that time on the cost of operating the budgeted entity, including but not limited to the contractual requirements pertaining to shift of equipment calling requirements and minimum staffing requirements in accord with substitute resolution number 2.
Second.
Motion has been made and properly second. Are there any discussions? Any discussions? Councilwoman Hercules.
Yes, I would just like some clarification around this from Attorney Mednick, if he wouldn't mind.
Happy. Oh, you want me to clarify that? Well, this was a proposal that came from another source. The reason that the provision was put into the report is they thought it was important as part of the budget process to learn this information, to understand how lines are driven by various collective bargaining agreements and the provisions of collective bargaining agreements. You and your colleagues, the council, asked to delete the language, and I don't know what the source or where that came from. I can't tell you why that was asked of you, and the commission agreed to that deletion. The problem is if you reject the commission's position, it simply restores an empty line here because you can't resurrect their draft report because it was basically rejected, and they agreed to eliminate this language.
So that means that information would not be part of the budget review process then?
It will not be, it cannot be the way it's been framed. If this is, if you approve it, obviously it goes away, but in a way, if you delete it, if you don't approve it, it goes away because it's not a current provision of the charter, and you can't restore their prior report. The way they could have, if they wanted to do that, they could have come down and rejected your proposal and said, we want you to accept this language, and then you could have debated the language. But it's the way it's framed now procedurally, the language will probably go away either way.
Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you for your question.
Councilwoman Surgeon.
Through you, Madam Chair, got my my answer.
So you're all set?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Are there any other questions or discussions? There being none, Mr. Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilman Clark,
Reject.
Councilman Gill, Councilwoman Hercules,
I guess it doesn't matter, but I'm not in agreement with the deletion, but it seems like it's not going to matter at any rate. So I would reject.
Councilman LeBron,
Yes.
Councilman Mitchum,
Reject, I guess.
Councilwoman Rosado,
Yes.
Councilwoman Rossetti,
Yes.
Councilman Sanchez,
It seems to me it's moot, so I reject.
Councilman Surgeon.
Reject.
Motion rejected.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Mr. Majority Leader, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. We're almost done. We have 5 more lines to go. I would like to make a motion that we accept line item 15, which is chapter 10, section 3B5. The commission removed the requirement for the mayor to include the following information in the budget message: an explanation of the assumptions that were taken into account for any and all financial forecasts and estimates of expenditures or revenues in the proposed budget, including the amount required to meet existing contractual provisions of collective bargaining agreements pertaining to workforce requirements in accord with substitute resolution number 2.
Second.
Motion has been made and properly second. Are there any comments, questions? There being none, Mr. Clerk, could you please call the vote?
Sorry, Madam President, I'm not too swift on this.
Oh, it's okay. Councilwoman Surgeon, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam. Again, Councilman, through you, Madam Chair, to Attorney Regnick. Is this the same effect if because this item was removed out of the original recommendation, it'll become mute?
It would have the same effect as the last one.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Sorry to give you the news, but that's the way.
Okay.
Thanks.
Mr. Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilman Clark,
Even though it was a moot point, I reject.
Councilman Gale, Councilwoman Hercules,
Reject.
Councilman LeBron,
Yes.
Councilman Mitchum,
No.
Councilwoman Rosado,
Yes.
Councilwoman Rossetti,
Yes.
Councilman Sanchez,
Reject.
Councilwoman Surgeon.
Reject.
Motion rejected.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Mr. Majority Leader, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Through you, I'd like to make the motion that we accept line item 16, which is Chapter 10, Section 3D4. The commission removed the requirement of debt analysis beyond the 5-year capital plan, consistent with best practices in accord with substitute resolution number 2. The provision was also corrected to reflect the role of the pension commission in determining the amount required to fund city pensions in accord with substitute resolution number 1.
Second.
Motion has been made and properly second. Are there any discussions, comments? Councilman Clark.
Thank you, Madam President. This question is for Attorney Mednick and is probably going to follow suit with the rest of the Chapter 10 items. Is this, Attorney Mednick, another moot point, so to speak?
This is the subsection 4, dealing with the requirement beyond the 5-year capital plan.
Yes.
Yes, it would be, because I think it's all new language. Yes, it would. It would be because it's new language. Let me take a look here. 252. Yeah, it's all. Well, the problem with this section is that there is current language that would remain, but the language with regard to the 5-year capital plan is new language. So the language that is in the charter currently would remain. The other language would be eliminated either way.
Thank you.
Corporation Counsel Howard Rifkin.
Thank you. Through you, Council President. I would say just two things with respect to the requirement for debt analysis beyond the 5-year capital plan. I think the view was, and one of the reasons why the council rejected the language and sent it back to the commission in the first instance, was there was language in there about an analysis that was going to be done, for example, about whether outstanding debt of the city should be refinanced, which has traditionally been the purview of the city treasurer. So that was one of the reasons why the management of debt on behalf of the city has always been within the purview of the treasurer, and that is why that language was rejected initially. The second thing I would say is that the Charter Revision Commission initially said to the council, or presented to the council, a provision that said the ADEC, that is the amount that the city needed to fund out of the general fund for the pension fund, was going to be determined by a consultant hired by the mayor. The current charter says that that is within the purview of the pension commission to be determined, and that the council nor the mayor had any ability to change that. So it was felt that that was a requirement that should be preserved. So that's the basis of the two provisions that were rejected essentially by the council and sent back to the commission.
And just for the record, the commission agreed, and especially there was an errata a fairly significant faux pas in the elimination of the pension, well, not including the pension commission in that. So a good chunk of this is a correction of the proposal.
Are there any other questions or comments? There being none, Mr. Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilman Clark,
I accept.
Councilman Gale, Councilwoman Hercules,
Reject.
Councilman LeBron,
Yes.
Councilman Mitchum,
No.
Councilwoman Rosado,
Yes.
Councilwoman Rossetti,
Yes.
Councilman Sanchez,
Yes.
Councilwoman Surgeon.
Approve.
Motion accepted.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Mr. Majority Leader, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Through you, I'd like to make the motion that we take action on line 17, which is chapter 10, section 3, subsection D7. The commission removes the requirement to report the expenditures required to meet contractual provisions of existing collective bargaining agreements, differentiating between base wages or compensation and additional levels of premium or bonus compensation in accord with substitute resolution number 2.
Second.
Motion has been made and properly second. Are there any questions? Any questions or comments? Councilwoman Surgeon, are you all set? Just
Thank you. And I'm not speedy on my computer today. Again, thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to the Attorney Mesnick. Is this another mute point?
That is correct. The way it is procedurally, you cannot resurrect this language. So you can vote either way on it. This language is all new language, and therefore, if you accept the proposal, it's eliminated. If you reject it, it just can't be resurrected at this point.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Are there any other questions? There being none, Mr. Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilman Clark,
I reject.
Councilman Gale, Councilwoman Hercules,
Reject.
Councilman LeBron,
Accept.
Councilman Mitchum,
No.
Councilwoman Rosado,
Yes.
Councilwoman Rossetti,
Yes.
Councilman Sanchez,
Reject.
Councilman Surgeon.
Reject.
Motion rejected.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Mr. Majority Leader, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Through you, I'd like to make the motion that we accept line item 18, which is chapter 10, section 3D. The last sentence, the commission removed enterprise funds, special revenue funds, grants, and imposed fine and recovery funds from revenue sources other than the tax levy in accord with substitute resolution number 2.
Second.
Motion has been made and properly second. Are there any comments? Councilwoman Surgeon.
Through you, Madam President, to Attorney Mesnick. Again, is this one of the mute points?
You cannot. Yes, that is correct.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yep.
So I'm just trying to get some clarity around the implication of this. So when we're looking at the budget and we're looking at revenue, we're essentially not categorizing these items as revenue for the city. So imposed fines wouldn't be part of revenue? So, or wouldn't be a revenue source?
Attorney Mesnick.
Would what be revenue source? The grants?
Imposed fines would no longer be considered a revenue source?
That was new language that was being proposed by the Charter Commission that was rejected by the council. And the Charter Commission agreed to the rejection of that language. And the intent of that language was to capture those items in the budget. Whether they're captured or not, I cannot tell you. You're on the council, you'd know better than I. But the intent was to capture that. But the council sent it back to us this way. And again, we can't resurrect the language of the draft report. That language is from the draft report.
And so if this does not, well, if it does go forward, then these items are not considered revenue, which to me does not make any sense at all.
Yeah.
If it does not go forward, then what would that mean in terms of budget when we are categorizing grants? We just put it under miscellaneous?
Well, I suppose that depends on whether you have an ordinance that governs in this.
I think we just lost something.
Attorney Mednick.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we'll just give him a couple of minutes to log back on.
Computer probably died.
Yeah.
The way
So,
that it came off. He probably didn't anticipate it being this long.
yeah. So is our corporation counsel still on?
He is.
Okay, maybe you can answer my question.
And I charge less per hour.
Oh, thank you. You know, I love that. Boy, you're saving us a lot of money in the city.
So let me just say that predictable fines, where there is a way of measuring what the potential revenue is, are included in revenue estimates. But where you're talking about imposed fines or even recovery funds, for example, they're so episodic that it is almost impossible to budget as a steady stream of revenue. I think that is one of the reasons why it was proposed to be eliminated from.
With that explanation, it makes sense because I understand the grants, things that are not necessarily guaranteed, but the fines were just throwing me off. So I understand the clarification. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilwoman Surgeon?
I think our corporation counsel answered my question. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, your hand is still up.
Sorry.
It's okay. With that said, Mr. Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilman Clark,
I reject.
Councilman Gale, Councilwoman Hercules,
Accept.
Councilman LeBron,
Yes.
Councilman Mitchum,
Yes.
Councilman Rosado,
Yes.
Councilman Rossetti,
Yes.
Councilman Sanchez,
Accept.
Councilwoman Surgeon.
Accept.
Motion accepted.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Mr. Majority Leader, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Through you, I'd like to make the motion that we accept line item 19, which is chapter 10, section 4B. The commission remove the introductory clause in accord with substitute resolution number 2.
Second.
Motion has been made and properly second. Are there any discussions, any questions? There be none, Mr. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilman Clark,
Reject.
Councilman Gale, Councilwoman Hercules,
Reject.
Councilman LeBron,
Yes.
Councilman Mitchum,
No.
Councilwoman Rosado,
Yes.
Councilwoman Rossetti,
Yes.
Councilman Sanchez,
Yes.
Councilwoman Surgeon.
Reject.
Motion rejected.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Mr. Majority Leader, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Last item, I would like to make the motion that we accept line item number 20, which is chapter 10, section 4D, subsections 1 and 2. The commission alters the mayor's authority by permitting the modification or reduction of any item of expenditure, as well as the council's ability to override such modifications in accord with substitute resolution number 2.
Second.
Motion has been made and properly second. Are there any discussions?
Yes, Madam.
Shirley,
Thank you, Madam Chair. To you, through you, Madam Chair, to Attorney Mesnick.
Yep.
Again, would this be one of the mute points if this is new language?
Well, this is a little different. This is the new language. If you reject this, it reverts to the current language. So the modification provision would be gone and it would revert to the current standard. So if you reject it, the language goes away.
Okay, so basically, so during the budget process, council can add, but they can, move items around or so. This modification is, if it's rejected, will still allow council to do so.
The council, yes, that is correct. And that the mayor can only reduce or disapprove of the items, would not be able to modify any reductions that are made by the council.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. And I apologize, my computer died.
figured that.
So, yeah.
Are there any other questions or comments? There being none, Mr. Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilman Clark.
Reject.
I'm sorry to hear. Councilman Clark.
Reject.
Councilman Gale. Councilwoman Hercules.
Reject.
Councilman LeBron.
Yes.
Councilman Mitchum.
No.
Councilwoman Rosado.
Yes.
Councilwoman Rossetti.
Yes.
Councilman Sanchez.
Reject.
Councilman Surgeon.
Reject.
Motion rejected.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Mr. Majority Leader, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Now I'd like to make the motion that we take action on the resolution that was provided to us as amended.
Second.
Motion has been made and properly second. For clarification and transparency reasons, when we vote on this resolution, we will also be voting on the question that's going to be presented on the ballot. So Councilman Clark, would you be able to read that second resolve for the public on the resolution before we vote?
Yes, Madam President. Actually, I will read all of the resolved clauses.
Thank you.
That the Court of Common Council approves the final report of the Charter Revision Commission dated August 3rd, 2022 in its entirety, including the Code of Special Acts referred to in Section 5A3 of Chapter 7 of the Charter, and be it further resolved that the Court of Common Council, in accordance with Connecticut General Statutes, Section 7, 191E and F, hereby adopts the following question to be placed on the ballot for a referendum to be held on the general election of November 8th, 2022. Shall the electors of the City of Hartford approve and adopt the charter changes as recommended by the Charter Revision Commission and as approved by the Court of Common Council? And be it further resolved that the Court of Common Council authorizes the town and city clerk to publish the proposed revised charter in a newspaper having general circulation in the municipality with a notice that a complete copy of the charter is available in the town and city clerk's office, and that a copy shall be mailed to any person who requests a copy as required by Connecticut General Statute, Section 7-191D. And moreover, a copy of said charter shall be available on the website of the city. And be it further resolved that the Court of Common Council authorizes Corporation Council and Charter Council to continually review the document of errata and non-substantive editorial revisions through publication. And be it further resolved that pursuant to Connecticut General Statute, Section 9-369B, subsection A, the Court of Common Council authorizes the town and city clerk with the assistance of Charter Council to prepare an explanatory text specifying the intent and purpose of the proposed revised charter. That is the subject of the ballot question and will be voted upon on November 8th, 2022. Said final text is subject to approval of the Corporation Council.
Thank you, Councilman Clark. Corporation Counsel, I see your hand is up.
Thank you, Council President. The only recommendation I would make, Councilman Clark, is that in the first resolved clause of the resolution, you should strike the phrase "in its entirety" and substitute "as amended," so that it would read, resolve that the Court of Common Council approves the final report of the Charter Revision Commission dated August 3rd, 2022, as amended, including the Code of Special Acts, et cetera, et cetera.
Madam President, if I may.
You have the floor, Majority Leader.
Thank you. I would like to rephrase the first resolve to read that the Court of Common Council approves the final report of the Charter Revision Commission dated August 3rd, 2022, as amended, including the Code of Special Acts referred to in Statute 5A3 of Chapter 7 of the Charter.
Second.
So Corporation Counsel, so we should vote on the amendment of that first resolve clause, correct? And then go back to the amended resolution?
I don't think that's necessary. I think the motion to recognize that you've voted on several amendments is enough.
Thank you. So the motion has been made and properly second. Are there any discussions? Any comments? Councilman Mixtum.
Thank you, Madam President. I would urge my colleagues to vote against this, to vote down this whole charter revision as amended, and here is why.
Can you put the computer on the purple thing?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, just making sure. I couldn't tell if someone was interrupting me because I had said something wrong yet. Give me a minute, I'll say something wrong. The reason we should vote this down is because charter revision is an opportunity to look at how our city is governed, big picture. How is this machine working? How are these pieces fitting together, and see what's wrong and take bold steps to fix it. This charter does not do that. It makes some valuable technical corrections, and then it reinforces the status quo. And the status quo in this city, in terms of how government works for the people, is bad. Okay, our voter participation is very low. People have the sense that they do not have a voice and that they do not have a way, they don't know whom to turn to, or that that person will do for them what they need to do. And Attorney Mednick did yeoman's work. He put together a lot of experts who came and talked to this commission, and numbers of them said, if you switch to a geographic district system, you will increase voter participation. You will increase people's sense of engagement with city government. And the Charter Commission did not do that. That was the thing. Most of the people in this virtual room, I remember, sat with me at a debate when we were running for these offices at the seminary over there in the West End. And the issue that came up most was districts. District is the thing that I heard most when I was running. It's the thing I've heard most since. And this Charter Commission has not fixed it. We are the last in the state with this. We have a system that is not responsive to people, where people don't know where to turn, and they don't have a sense that their vote matters and that folks respond to their needs. That's one. We think about the other ways, the most common ways that people interact with their city. It's the Board of Education, right? People send their kids to school, but they don't vote for their members on the Board of Ed. That is a simple thing we could do to engage people with the service that matters most to them. And unfortunately, the other way that people engage, one of the ways they engage most with the city, is the police, or the city engages with them. And we had an opportunity to look at police commissioners as a way to give people a direct voting influence over control and discipline and the responsiveness and the budget of their police department. And the commission did not engage in that inquiry either. And I haven't even gotten to the part, and I won't dwell on it, of the process, and a process that forced every Black member of this commission to walk away because they felt they weren't being heard, because they felt the fix was in. Now, whether the fix was in or not, I think the folks who ran the thing had a duty to hear that out, to bring those people back and to open up the debate. And they did not do that. And so what we have here is a process that has alienated a number of members, including every Black member in our very Black city, and a process that has not sought to make government better in any substantive way. Instead, it has maintained a system where very few people make a very many rules, mostly without public input. It's a bad revision. The charter as it stands now is bad, and this doesn't make it any better. And we should have the courage to stand up and say so. And that's not because of anything Mr. Mednick did. Like I say, he did a fine job, but the commission as a whole did not. And it is our duty to say no, thank you. And hopefully we can come back and try this again and maybe do a little better. I urge all of you to vote no.
Councilman Sanchez.
Thank you, Madam President, and through you, Madam President. I appreciate Councilman McDum. And, you know, I hear you. But let me just state this. This past Tuesday, for example, was, I believe, the worst ever turnout when it came to the elections. And I was part of that. And I understand what you're stating, but I don't think that what we just voted on is going to help to educate our population. I put the onus on myself. I put the onus on this council, okay? We need to educate our community. And by the way, it's not only Black, it's Hispanics, it's white, it's Russians. We have them all here. So let's not just focus on one race, okay? I believe that, and I understand that we have an opportunity coming next year to reconvene and put back together a new charter revision commission. We can gather to follow through so that we can give the opportunity to our community to decide what they would like to see, if it's going to be a district council voting or hybrid or what have you. But it's important to let the public go on that and put a referendum this coming year on the election ballots. It is up to them to decide. And I will follow my community, my constituents. Now,
I think we lost Councilman
Yeah.
Sanchez. He'll be back. Councilwoman Surgeon. Oh, here he is. Councilman, you have the floor again.
my apology. I don't know what's going on. All night it's been an issue with, technical issue with the Wi-Fi, I guess. But I'm not going to go any further. Councilman Mickham, I know where you're coming from. But you know what? We need to work together here. And it's not just amongst ourselves, but we need to make sure we can put a referendum on the next election and let the people vote. Let the people decide what type of voting they want, whether it's district, whether it's hybrid, what have you. Thank you. I just ended right there.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman Surgeon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, Madam Chair. First, I want to thank Attorney Mesnick for all his hard work over the last year or so with the Charter Revision Commission. And I also want to say a thank you to the members of the Charter Revision Commission, for their civic involvement, giving up so much of their time on behalf of the residents of the city. And even though I may not agree with most of their decision, I do appreciate all the time they have given up to work in the commission and produce this document. For several decades now, being involved in the city, I've always heard that representation from each community is what is needed for the city to actually, for the residents to truly actually get involved. When we did charter revision to a strong form of mayor of government, there was always that concern. Several years ago, was actively involved in that. And the concern again was they really wanted to have district representation. I don't believe the entire city of Connecticut, Hartford is the last town with a strong mayor form of government and not have district representation. It's like having your state representative from different districts throughout the state represent their districts. I believe in district election, and that's one of the things I wanted the Charter Revision Commission to take a look at. Unfortunately, there was not a very strong support in the commission to take a look of charter revision. And one of the things I've said to several of the members of the Charter Revision Commission is that the core governance of the city without district election, it's flawed. Somebody reminded me today of a metaphor that says, fruit of the poisonous tree. If the tree is tainted, so are its fruit. And I'm looking at the core governance of this city. And if our voter turnout or participation of our residents, whether we're doing it by Zoom or whether we're doing it by in person, it has been disastrous over the last several years. I think when we have district election, and I do hope that going forward, maybe the next council would actually truly have a Charter Revision Commission to truly take a look at how we're going to get our residents actively involved in their governance of their city. I think it will cut back on the complaints from the residents that, trying to get information out. How do we, get information out? I also want to thank the town clerk for trying to get more civic involvement, upgrading his office technology. But we also need to, if the resident of each neighborhood, and again, I'm going to say nine person representing different district in the city would be quite sufficient. But we truly have to look at our kids now and look at our kids in the future and let them know that we're doing the best we can, for the governance of the city on behalf of them. And so I am going to vote no on this charter revision, because I think the most core part that is truly missing, even though I think the commission have done some great job in cleaning it up, the core part of not having district representation will not affect our involvement in the city as we go forward. So I'm going to be voting no on the resolution to send this to the residents of the city.
Councilman Nick LeBron.
Through you, Madam President. So I try not to belabor the point and repeat some of the same things, but I do echo some of the sentiments of all of my colleagues. I think as individuals, and through you, Madam President, that is what we do, right? We're not all aligned, and we're not all going to be aligned. And I think that it's important to understand that and to accept that. I do. When I was campaigning, I often went to the same places as Councilman Mickham, and I did hear, number one, the district voting, and number two, the Board of Ed voting. There were different variations on how people wanted to see that, and also with the Board of Ed, but there was a general consensus. So when we did the Charter Review Commission, one of the things that I was most excited about was this process. And so I've been involved in the process for a very long time, either attending meetings, watching meetings, meeting with my representative. And I was very shocked that there wasn't an appetite for these things, right? That we heard so commonly and so often. And what I take in my inference for that is that we have a tale of two Hartfords in our city. We have those that are heavily vested and heavily interested and also heavily informed. And then there's a population, as you see our voter turnout, that is apathetic. I'll just give one example and I'll close with this. So I live near Sigourney Street, and we have a big important bridge on Sigourney Street that is being rebuilt. There was multiple outreach efforts to myself and my family here, letters, things of that nature. When I went to the public meeting that was in downtown on Union Street, there was one person, and that was me. And I think when I say that with love for my city, but I think we got to do a better job with outreach. I try my best to do outreach. I try my best to inform the public, inform my constituents, answer emails, do the phone calls. But, you know, it's not turning the pendulum. And so there is the general populace that has a desire and a wantingness, but there seems to be a tremendous disconnect. So although I agree with some of the things, what I have to say is this, and I'll end with this: the team on the field is the team we got. And I know I use a lot of sports analogies, and so the people that were involved in this Charter Review Commission was the team that we got. And they put in a lot of work, and kudos to Attorney Mednick. I also want to give kudos to James Wolfe, who I hold in high esteem, and everybody. I knew everybody on that Charter Review Commission, and I hold them all in high esteem. And so that's the team that we had. And so because of that, and me being a sports-related person, I'll be voting in support. Thank you.
Are there any other comments? Councilman Clark?
Thank you, Madam President. This has been a very long process, and I'd like to really thank all the appointees of the council and Attorney Mednick for being the Charter Revision Council once again. And, you know, I would say that I have been disappointed to a degree because some of the items that were true and dear to the hearts of the residents that were conveyed to the commissioners were really not taken up. And yes, we know about the walkout of some of the commission members, and you know the reasons that as it was floated around as to why that happened and why certain items did not be taken up for consideration. And there has been talks regarding the fact that, you know, whatever was not or would be potentially passed on to the electors, that can be reconsidered by another convening of a commission for another time. I believe that I think the time to act was now based upon, you know, our charter really not being able to get a thorough analysis and review and scrubbing for just about 20 years since the charter that we have now that we've been operating was changed back in, I think it was between 2003, 2005. I don't recall the exact date. However, it's important to note that I think that in order to truly have a city governed where the population is a majority of Black and Brown individuals, we need to really take into consideration what that governance model looks like. And I think it was very disappointing to see that there could not be strong consideration for how the governance of the city could actually be changed, such as council districts and a hybrid model. It's disappointing to hear that Hartford, which is the capital city, is the last major city in Connecticut that has not caught up with the times, so to speak. And I think that's something that we should be actually considering as we continue on how we have the face and structure of the city move forward. So if there is going to be another convening for a charter commission, I highly encourage our colleagues that you make a recommendation of someone that actually will be able to bring these ideas forward and really listen to the voice of the people. Because one could argue the way that the structure is now, which is 9 members at large, is not really impactful and kind of neglecting the voices of those that we call neighbors. So there's been some other great things that have been passed in this charter. But before we cast our vote, I think we need to take a good check and do a self-inventory quickly as to, is this something that we want to pass on to the electorate, or is this something that we actually want to take a step back and consider how we're going to move forward? Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank our chair of the Charter Commission, James Wolfe, our vice chair, Raul de Jesus, Councilman John Gale, Aruna Rolampalam, Steve Bonafante, Vicky Gallen Clark, Kamara Harrington, Kenneth Kennedy, Kathleen Kowalski, Melvin Medina, Jadida Jeter, Bruce Rubenstein, Ian Smith, Peter Yazbek. He was appointed May 10th, 2022, to replace Alexander Aponte, who resigned April 30th, 2022, because he moved out of the city. Also to the tremendous job that Attorney Magnet has done. Through this process, we had over 33 meetings, also 2 public hearings. And so I could think that, this charter revision did a tremendous job. They were volunteers. They did not get paid for this. And a lot of extras were brought in. And so this is democracy, right? You have meetings, you bring forward a vote, and you vote on that. And so when we have a meeting on council, and I'm going to use you as an example, Councilman Mitchum, and your vote does not go the way you want it, you don't decide to not show up ever again on council, you come back. And so, unfortunately, some of the commissioners walked out, didn't come back. I would have loved to see them come back and sit down and have further conversation. But that didn't happen. So when I hear, and I take this very offensively, and I'm going to be very candid here. When I hear comments like the fix is in, there was no fix. There was no fix. There were meetings. There was a lot of lobbying going on. Votes were taken. Meetings were followed. And this is democracy. And to make this about Black commissioners leaving, I take that very offensively, where we're making this into a race, and we should be working together as a council body, as colleagues, moving this city forward and not putting so much negativism or so many things that are just not appropriate. We need to move forward. We've been through a pandemic for 2 years. We put shovels in the grounds in the city practically every month. We have an inspector general for the Civilian Police Review Board. We have done a lot as a council body with this administration. So to not vote on this tonight sends a very strong message. And so I urge my colleagues to vote yes, move this forward. These are things that we voted 2 weeks ago and we sent back to the commission. And next year, convene and deal with the issue that is so important to the residents of the city of Hartford, which is district voting. But to not vote on this tonight would just not be the right thing to do. So please take in consideration the hard work that these commissioners have done, that we have done, and let's try to move this forward. Again, everyone, thank you. Yes, Commissioner, Councilman Mitchum.
Thank you, Madam President. I just, before we vote, I just wanted to respond to something that Councilman LeBron had said, and I appreciate, I appreciate his point about, the team that we have and going with the team that we have, and I appreciate your point, Council President, about sort of the duty we have as council to move the thing forward. But I think it's worth considering that the system is set up to give us this vote right now. And like, we are the team to follow Councilman LeBron's metaphor in some sense. Like there's the commission, right? And they were picked and they did their work, but we are also the team. We also have a role, and we are absolutely like the system allows us to say no. To say commission, yes, we picked you and you did your work and we had our back and forth. And now we are not satisfied. Now we think this isn't what we were looking for. That is not violating the system. That is playing along with it. Like we get a vote right now, and a no vote is every bit as legitimate as a yes vote. So instead of saying, well, we'll just do it again next year, I think we can say it didn't work out this time. Districts, for example, are too important. Voting for the Board of Ed is too important. Trying to consolidate more and more power in the mayor or not is too important to wait another year. We have this chance, and we have to say strongly what matters for good governance in the city and what doesn't. So I think we can play our role. We can be the team. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Mitchum. So, Attorney Mednick, before we take the vote on this, could you please briefly explain to us after this vote, and if it does happen, what will happen?
Yes, I will. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. I switched venues. I'm in my car.
Okay, so can you give us both scenarios if it does pass and if it doesn't pass,
Yep.
what will happen?
Well, if it doesn't pass tonight, it's over. Then there's nothing else to do. You're finished with the process. If it does pass it tonight, as the resolution indicates, you will have to publish the charter within 30 days. By the first week in September, you will have to file the ballot questions, which you hopefully will approve this evening, and then it's on the ballot in November. You also have the explanatory text that will come out in September that the city clerk will work on, and that'll be it. But if it's voted down tonight, if you do not have 5 votes this evening, the charter process is over for the year.
Thank you, Attorney Mednick. Without further ado, Mr. Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilman Clark,
Pass.
Councilman Gale, Councilwoman Hercules,
No.
Councilman LeBron,
Yes.
Councilman Mitchum,
No.
Councilwoman Rosado,
Yes.
Councilwoman Rossetti,
Yes.
Councilman Sanchez,
Yes.
Councilman Surgeon,
No.
Councilman Clark,
I'm going to vote yes.
motion passed.
Thank you, Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Thank you to all of my council colleagues. It's been a long meeting, but I thank you all. To members of the public, thank you. With that said, have a great night. I also want to thank my Chief Operating Officer. My previous Chief Operating Officer, David Grant, who did an excellent job through this charter revision. He is on to new endeavors, and we wish him well. And to my new Chief of Staff, Adam Murphy, who continues to work very hard from my office. I thank you both, and I appreciate you both. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Night.
Good